Hello, Anna here from the Cultural Exchanges team, welcoming you to In Conversation with Pheebs Jameson. So I found Pheebs online through her honesty and truth alongside her bass playing videos. She's known as Fat Pheebs online and has gained a really beautiful and quite large following. But unfortunately, due to this, she has also been receiving a lot of online hate and abuse. I hope that this conversation provides us all with an opportunity to dig deeper within ourselves and learn how we can minimise online abuse and trolling alongside support those who are going through it. So I would just love to hear how you found your childhood, and as a child, did you think, like, what was it that you wanted to do as like your grown-up job? Was it this kind of thing you were thinking you wanted to do? No.
No. Not at all. I always wanted to be a nurse or a journalist or a meteorologist.
Nice.
I always wanted to be able to predict the weather. I just thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
I had lots of different phases, but nurse, or like caring for people in some way, which I guess is what I'm doing now in my job.
Yeah.
Well, the job I'm about to do. So yeah. I don't know. I had a very tough time at school. So a lot of my focus was not on my future or my grades or like anything like that. What I chose to do when I finished my GCSEs is go and do music because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was like, I'll just do something I enjoy, which was a really bad idea.
No?
It was not good. It ruined music for me for a long time. And then, but it's how I learned bass, how I like started to learn bass. But yeah, so I mean, I'm not saying people don't do what you love, you should, but like, I don't know, with hobbies, I think a lot of people agree there's a thing with like, they say don't do your hobby as a job, like,
yeah.
And so it's now better, like my bass is right next to me now. Bass is like my outlet and relief.
Yeah.
And like, but yeah, so I never really knew. I like, I wanted to just, I guess, do something that helps people.
Which your fact, like you said, it was that you wanted to like be a nurse or a journalist, and I feel like in a way your platform and what you do marries those two aspects together, like in a way that has served you and other people amazingly too. So it's almost it's sweet that although it isn't exactly what it wanted, it's like your like baby Pheebs alongside your life has allowed you to create like what you wanted to do for you now.
I never thought I'd work in mental health, which is what I do now. I'm in the youth mental health sector, so I never ever thought that that's what my job would be, because I was in therapy for so long. And like, when you're in therapy, you don't think, well, I mean, some people said yes, they're going to be a therapist, but I was like, I'm not going to be a therapist, but maybe one day. But for now, I just never ever thought that's what I do. So it's quite interesting that going through the services led to that experience.
But just to go back to what you kind of touched on, would you like to speak a bit more about why school and education wasn't good for you?
Yeah. Lots of reasons. I think the school system in general is just not suitable for everybody. Right. So when I was younger, I went through this trauma and I never realized that it had happened to me. And I think that so between the age of 11 until I was 14, I had no idea it had happened. Like my brain, it just was so traumatizing. My brain just didn't know how to handle it. I was in development as a teenager, and like it just got repressed. And then, but there were signs that a trauma had happened. On reflection, I like know that now, but at the time I didn't know. So I was in a classroom one day, and like, do you know, like citizenship, like they do, like at school, which was actually one of my favorite lessons, because even though we didn't learn really anything or cover any basis, it was interesting. And like the one lesson where like you had a bit more free speech. So I liked those lessons, but they talked about something and I got a flashback. I didn't know it was a flashback at the time, and it really freaked me out. And that's when I then started to like begin self-harming, and I didn't realize why I was self-harming. And I told a teacher at school, and in all of this, like my mum had been really ill, my dad had left and come back like many times, and I just like I had personal circumstances as well as school being difficult. And then sort of in 2015, 2016, things got really bad and I made an attempt on my life. And I like then started learning through like counselling. I just did counselling at first, that I'd been through something really bad, and that had happened to me. And it was then starting to piece that all together. So whilst going through all of that, I still had to go to school. And then my mental health just deteriorated, and this was all now as early signs of bipolar, which is I'm under the diagnosis process for bipolar 2. So as a teenager, they were the signs. Like I was having signs of different things, symptoms of bipolar, and definitely went through episodes throughout like those years. But because I was so young, they like don't diagnose that early with illnesses such as bipolar, which you can see why. And through all of this, then I was also a fat teenager. And if you have anyone watching has been fat at any age, but especially as a teenager in a school, you are just a target for everything and anything. They like I was told that how I looked and what I was so bad, and no one was telling me it was okay to be the size I was. I was bigger than I am now. But also through all of that, I had undiagnosed PCOS and hypothyroidism at those times. So I didn't understand. I put myself on diets. I went to a personal trainer for so long. I like did everything I could to lose weight, and nothing happened. I just gained it. And I was like, what is wrong? And it took 4 years to have all of these investigations done to finally have that diagnosis. So whilst going through very difficult emotional circumstances at school, and then being bullied for my weight, and then my weight being something I did not really have any control over, and wanted to have, I had definitely had internalized fat phobia. I thought fat was the worst thing in the world. But also because all these people would mock me and make fun of my body and shame me and like bully me, and I was like, oh my god, okay, I need to do something about this. The only thing that's going to make this all stop. And I had all of that going on, and I loved learning, which was so horrible because I didn't love school because I think of all those aspects, and my school just didn't handle things well at all, especially to do with mental health. But like I loved English, like I did drama, like I like I was a drama student. Everyone says, whenever you say to people you're a drama student, they're like, okay. And it was like my way to express myself in all of this this darkness I was feeling. And I loved English, and I've always been told I had a way with words, and so I'm not going to say I'm not intelligent, because I am, and I know I'm intelligent, but I don't think I was given the right support for, and I'm not very academic in other senses, so I wasn't given a lot of encouragement. So it was all very do it yourself, and I think but I had a few good teachers who really did try and help my life and help with the bullying, but it was the higher powers at school who didn't do anything, and they're the people who can do something. So so I think it was tricky, and also I was mocked a lot by my peers, but I also think that they were teenagers who were also insecure themselves. We were all struggling with body image. Many people on reflection were self-harming, were also going through things that as a teenager you're like, what? But actually that's like so I think obviously mocking someone's body is never okay ever, but I can understand as a teenager why, because they didn't even understand themselves probably what they were doing. Not my bullies were, they knew what they're doing. They've carried it on now, even though we're all adults. They still, so like, that's a whole different thing. But I just think like peers and like body image and like sexuality and like trying to understand yourself in school with all of these people around you and just trying to like get through that and have academic pressure and personal pressure. Like I wasn't the only one who was going through stuff. So like, yeah, school was just hard. It was hard emotionally. Like it's just like leading up to that, saying it. Like I wasn't going to say what happened because I don't think I'm ready to talk about that. But like it was because in my head then it like, but like I think it's good that I showed my emotion then and didn't be like, can we stop? Because that's what it's like to talk about those things. Like it's not always easy and like, oh yeah, this happened and now I'm fine, because I'm not fine from it. And it's only been coming up to 8 years. So like, and I've only just let it happen, like fully understand that whole experience last year and gone through that in therapy. So like, it's still very like, and I'm doing the police investigation for it currently and you know, so it's
not being fine is fine, don't worry.
Literally. So I think because I was so close to being like, can we stop? But then I was like, no, because I'm very transparent with my emotions. I tried to be. It's hard, it's sometimes with this illness hard not to be transparent when you don't have a lot of control over it. So yeah, and like I think with school, I think school is just hard for a lot of people. And there's so much miseducation and ignorance because we're not taught things in the school, so people then lead to bullying, and it's a big problem.
It really is. It really, really is. But thank you for speaking about that. And once you left school and you pursued music, did you go, was that through like college or sixth form? Did you stay where you were?
I left as soon as I could.
Me
I was
too.
gonna leave. Yeah, you know the feeling. I was gonna leave school. So like I wasn't really in school during year 10 because my mum became ill again and I had to look after her, and then my mental health was poor and my dad had like 2017 was a horrible year. And I couldn't leave because I wasn't really there. And then year 11 came around and I came back, and then I was like, do I just move? And it was the final year of GCSEs, and I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to put my head down and do what I can to get into college. So I just stayed. And then I moved on to college in a town near where I live. And I didn't know, I think there were a couple of people from my school who went there, but not in my lessons. So I didn't know anyone at all. And I was so nervous, but so excited, because it was like, I was so worried that people would say something about my weight. Like I remember on the first day I wore these big baggy dungarees, and I thought I looked cool. Probably 16-year-old me, I was like, maybe not the coolest, but I felt really cool that day. But I was trying to cover my body, and I remember going in and everyone just looked so different. And at this time I was still a closeted queer person, so I had not like, I kind of came out to a couple of people. At the time I was bisexual, now I identify as being queer pan, but I hadn't like, you know, I was bullied for being fat at school. I don't want to be bullied for being fat and gay. I was so scared. Like I was like, so I just didn't tell anyone. And then came to college, met a lovely person on the first day who introduced me to all her friends, and two of those people are now two of my closest friends, and they're both LGBTQ+, and like it was like George, who I met that day, he was like, are you like, he was like, he tried to guess my sexuality. And I was like, and I said yes, and it was like I could finally, and no one commented on my weight at all, nobody at college.
Rightly so.
That first day, like rightfully so, but it was like being in a place of acceptance like for the first time, and I'm so grateful to my friends for like just like it made me begin that like self-love journey, because they just loved me for who I was, regardless of any other aspect, because those aspects shouldn't matter. Like so it was just very refreshing, and I did not get bullied at college at all. It was amazing.
And was your mental health better during college?
I think between like 2018, 2019, yes. And then I went through quite a difficult relationship and emotionally, and that impacted me greatly. And then that year as well, I was sexually assaulted again. And and then I went through a massive hypermanic episode from probably April 2019 to November 2019. I was hypomanic that whole time. And I snapped out of it, and that ended up with me being in hospital, because I went from being up here, like doing anything, everything, drinking, being really reckless, not going to college, like just spending all my money on alcohol, all of that stuff. And then I just crashed like that. So things were good, but then also this whole time, you know, I was having a mental illness, being diagnosed with other things that was not the case in TAMS. So making that transition from TAMS, is she going to go to adults or not? And I was very, very lucky to have a therapist in TAMS who was like, there is something more going on here than just low mood. I'm gonna get you into adults. Which I'm very glad she did, because now I'm having the right treatment, and it's wonderful. So things were better at college, and then circumstances just got worse again. So it was a lot of traumas. And I think that probably put me into an episode, because my illness and mind just couldn't handle what was going on. So yeah, it's been like this for quite a while.
Yeah, and for those who are watching that may not know like what a hypomanic episode is, how would you describe it personally?
It's not just being happy. So a lot of people, I'd like to explain the difference between mania and hypermania, because mania is associated with bipolar 1, which is more, in most cases of bipolar 1, your mania is more severe than your depressive episodes. So your manic episodes are worse than your depressive ones. And your manic episodes will most likely be the ones that get you hospitalized if that ever happens. Bipolar 2 is just the other way around. Your depressive episodes are worse than your manic ones. So it's hypomania, because it's not like severe mania, in the sense that I wouldn't go, I did have a problem with spending, but like not to the point I'd go and buy a house. So like, I'm not saying every person who's ever experienced mania does that, but that's like, there's different like severities of it. So a hypomanic episode, this is just for me, it's different for every single person. Was like not sleeping at all, barely, 2, 3, 4 hours, and I'd be able to go and do a full day's work, or like go and do something. Reckless behavior, so some people have lots and lots of sex with different partners, which whether you have mania or not, that's okay. It's just whether that is because of whatever reason that is. You could go and sleep with as many people you want, as long as it's consensual, and whatever your situation is. Not really caring about things. So like, I wouldn't spend really any time with my family. I just wanted to go and have fun. I was like living my best life. I wasn't, but it felt like I was. I felt like I didn't need to take my meds, so I stopped taking them. I was on an antidepressant at the time. It's just like, for someone who's going through a hypomanic episode, it's not what you need. But now I'm on antipsychotics. Now I have the right meds. I'm on antipsychotics, so I don't have episodes so much anymore. More depressive ones than hypomanic, or a mixed episode, which can happen sometimes. So yeah, that was what it was like for me, and just having hard things happen to me and just not caring about them. It was a lot of like lack of care, and like yeah, I think my friends would be able to describe it quite well, because on reflection we've like reflected on it, and they now know some of the warning signs for when things are getting tough.
Yeah, because I don't have like bipolar, but when my mental health was the worst, I can really identify with aspects of what you just said, especially the aspect of feeling like you're like living your best life. And it's just so crazy looking back at it, because similar, I had like a stint when I was at sixth form, where I thought I was fine, and it was the first time I was off medication since I was like 12 or 13. So like I shouldn't have just decided like F it, I'm not going to go on them. And it was like, looking back at it now, it's so strange, because then I thought I was like fixed, and I thought I had it all under control, and like it was only going to go up from here. Obviously a few months later, my mental health was really bad, but it's really beautiful to hear that you've been able to have that conversation with your friends about it, because unfortunately, due to my episodes then, I'm now not friends with those people, and I wouldn't want to like go back to it, because I think that there's a lot of trauma for me and them there. But it's really nice to hear that you've been able to figure that out. I think that for a lot of people that go through those, not necessarily exactly what you said, but similar, it's nice to hear that you have the possibility to go back and rectify it, because I think so many people, once it's happened, want to go, I'm not going back there again. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for them and their understanding, and I think it was just I think we all knew something was going on. The amount I drank, and like you know, I didn't do heavy drugs, but I did some substances.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, just the amount I wanted to like go out, and like, especially after like being assaulted, I kind of just brushed it off. It was like, why isn't she like processed that, or like, I don't know. Now I have a bit more. But yeah, because the other thing was, I've just turned 18, or I'm 17 turned 18, is this just me being a teenager? But probably partly like with some aspects of wanting to party and stuff like that, but really no. No. I think it wasn't completely obvious to people that I was going through that. Like, I didn't tell people I'd stopped taking my medication.
No,
like I was
either.
No. I literally was just like, it's my decision. It's what feels amazing for me right now. I don't need meds because I'm doing so well. It was like this, like,
you feel like they're weighing you down in those moments.
In those moments. And I even stopped taking medication for like my physical conditions as well. I was like, I don't need it because my body is literally amazing. Like it was it was hard, but I haven't had a hypomanic episode for a long time, which could possibly waver my bipolar diagnosis at some point, because not everyone has the diagnosis forever. But some people have it as a lifelong condition. I don't know if I will. I can't say that. I'm 19 years old. Like, I'm gonna obviously develop, and but I think a lot of my bipolar has stemmed from trauma and my development stage as a teenager. So I think that's if I can go through, I have like trauma therapy at the moment, and I'm doing a sexual, like psychosexual therapy and like sexual assault therapy in roughly a year's time. So like, if all of that, I like work through the trauma and understand how it's impacted me, then perhaps the diagnosis might change. But it's very hard because I also have lots of symptoms of PTSD, so it's like it's very like, it could be both, it could be one or the other. Like at the moment it's bipolar, it could change, I don't know.
Who knows? I think that's the hardest thing, is the diagnosis part too, with all of these. Because you just want somebody to go, this is why.
This is why. Here we go.
But it's hard.
It is tricky, and especially the diagnosis for like illnesses such as bipolar, PTSD, schizophrenia, OCD. Those diagnostic processes average take 4 to 7 years, because they have to see you across a long period of time. I mean, you can do certain things, like, you know, I had a therapy, and it was like a formulation of my life and going through childhood, how my childhood impacts my adulthood now. And so like I learned a lot through them, and my therapist then learned a lot about me and what shaped me to be why I'm in this place now. So yeah, that can like speed things up, but obviously yeah.
And alongside your mental health journey, which you were, and like you're so beautifully transparent with this online, I think that that's something that is so lovely to see. Has it affected your relationship, like with your like online presence? Do you think that how do I word this? It's like your relationship with your like online presence and like the growth of it, how has that affected or changed your relationship with your mental health at all? Like, have you seen it as an aid, or do you like do it as a duty, or is it just like as and when?
More as and when. Like, it's very like, I talk about things when I want to, because I think this year and last year was obviously it's been tough for everybody. There's an underlying aspect that we're all going through, but I also had lots of trauma happen last year and still currently. So I think I'm very like, I will talk about this when I want to talk about it, if I want to. I try my very best to talk about lots of different things and amplify lots of different people. I often say like, I'm not the one for this. Go look at this person, because you know, they're going to talk about it better and you're going to learn something, or whatever it is. I think it's scary to think that there's these, I mean, 7,000 people might not seem a lot to a lot of people, but
No, that's
for
a lot of
me,
people.
but they're not all going to fit in my house. Like,
no, they're not.
But I think of it like when I'm talking about things, if I ever do like a live stream, or like someone's liked something or a post got some likes, it's like, imagine all those people around you. Like, that's a lot of people.
A lot.
So yes, it's like, it's hard sometimes, but I'm quite good at, I think, detaching from like social media. If I'm going through, like, I need to stop apologizing if I'm going through an episode or something, because I do that sometimes. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not my usual self. It's like, I don't even need to put this online. I was like, it's literally fine. So I think it's like a certain pressure to feel like I have to update people, but I also update people on my mental health journey, because and other things like I talk about fat phobia, or I talk about body acceptance or self-love, or like whatever it is, because nobody around me and my social media, we didn't really have social media as a teenager, more like at 15, 16 I started to, but no one in the media, beyond social media, no one in the media was talking about these things. Like, it's okay to be fat, it's okay to love yourself, whatever size you are. You know, other people have mental health conditions and illnesses too. You're not alone in this. Like, no one around me was doing that. So I'm trying to do that. People criticize me for saying, be the woman my teenage self never had. It's like, you're only 19. I was like, I literally turned 20 this year. Like, I am a young woman. I'm not a teenager. I am a young woman.
And also your teenage years is like, you change so much within each year of that. So let them criticize, because
so I think it's a certain pressure sometimes, but there's a lot of sense of community, especially like there's a lot of people I follow and interact with and are mutuals with and friends with, who like talk about mental illnesses and like talk about how those conditions can affect people, and talk about lots of different things. And I think, so that sense of community is wonderful. I try not to let it pressure me, but I think it has impacted like how I view my mental health. But then there's things I say in therapy that I would never share online. And maybe I will one day, but like, that's like my one safe space where there's no one else but me and my therapist, not even my family, because it's adults therapy, so it's literally just you and your therapist by choice. So that's like my safest space. And I'm very grateful to have that, because I haven't had an easy ride with therapy either, and have been neglected by the service. So I think I think social media can impact any of how we perceive ourselves in many aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were earlier saying like, oh, 7,000 people may not seem a lot to some, I think that for some reason with social media, we really don't understand how many people that is. Like, I don't have huge followings, but it's like if I get 100 likes on something, I'm like, but like that's 100 people that have decided to interact. Like that is similar. They couldn't all fit in my house. It's we really disconnect from. I don't like with social media. I feel like it's such a beautiful tool for us all to express ourselves and to like shout about what we want to, and rightfully so. But also we don't understand that how many people are perceiving it, how many people are interacting, and like that ultimately is going to have some sense of pressure on us and what we decide to do. And with your account growing, I'm sure there's been times where maybe what you posted when you had a smaller following or like has like changed now, or maybe it has stayed the same, but it's like
it's changed.
Yeah
I don't really post pictures of my family, friends or boyfriend, or like because I've experienced so much online abuse. I don't want them to, like, my best friend receives the end of like people started sending him abuse because they found him through my account. So it's like, you know, I'm very wary, so it's very me sometimes, and I'm like, that's on purpose because it's strange. I think when I had a really small following, I'd post like digs and like photos. I was really into photography and like things I liked, and like I still do that now. But I also, get people requesting me in my DMs that I talk about this, or like, oh, could you do something about this? Could you do this, or like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, or whatever it is. So it's like, I have a whole list for the next like 6 months of like content that I'd love to talk about just from myself, like what I'd like to speak about and like what I feel is important to share with my community. So yeah, some things have stayed the same, but some things have changed, I think.
It's so heartbreaking for me to like witness and also see your experience of online abuse because like going back to this whole like disconnect thing, I feel like people see for the most part, or like when you say online abuse or trolling, it's your like these big scale like celebrities and influencers in it. Like it doesn't matter because like they chose to be famous, therefore they're like worthy of it. And like, I mean, we're similar ages. It's like when I'm growing up like on social media, and especially like on YouTube, that was like the first times where I started like seeing online abuse and hate comments and trolling, and like just being so like perplexed as to why it was happening, but also like not valuing it as with the same intensity and the same amount of like upset I would have if I heard somebody say it to their face as a young person. And now my view is totally different on that, like years on. And perhaps it's because, although not to the same scale as you, like obviously I was bullied when I was younger, and have had instances where people have been not very nice to me on social media, and it's been spoken about more that it's not acceptable. But like, do you remember your first experiences of like seeing online abuse, not for you but for somebody else? Like, can you remember how that felt experiencing it?
Yeah, I think seeing it, saying like YouTube comments and like,
I know,
and like on lots of different videos, or like a big one for me is publication, like exploitation, and like that sense, or like mocking like bodies, or like commenting on like little aspects of people's lives that they've not shared, and like the paparazzi have found it. Like I call that forms of online abuse still, because of like these media publications. So I think that was YouTube, and like I was really into politics. I'm still a very political person, and but not so much. I don't think electoral politics is the way to go for change anymore, and I've changed my views on that. But I used to be really, really involved in it, and I think seeing abuse that, like, Diane Abbott, for example, from the Labour Party, would receive, that's like under her tweets or like videos or whatever, there's all of this abuse. I think that was like the first time like I saw it. Or like to YouTubers I like watched, like they, like a lot of fat phobia or like homophobia or racism or misogyny, like it was all just there, like it was just normal.
Everywhere. It's so crazy just thinking, because obviously I've never linked like all aspects of different types of media as online abuse, and like thank you for saying that, because of course it is the same. But even although not online, it's like if you think back to like when I was a kid and I'd be like getting like teen magazines, and this is a memory that I have so much, is I went to the doctors when I was in my teen years and I had like disordered eating, and I remember like waiting, and all of the magazines that were in the hospital just was like figure shaming women on the front of the magazine. And it's like, how, like why is this acceptable?
Like they'd circle cellulite or like stretch marks or a tummy, like of celebrities on holiday.
They're on holiday.
Like Beyonce, like Gemma Collins, there was like J-Lo, like Adele, like so many, Rihanna, like so many famous people. They would just like mock.
And when I was going through that, like I'm bigger than I was then, but it was like they were still like skinnier than me at that time. And
so then you're like, oh my god,
it's like, wow, like, I'm even worse than I thought I was. I need to change this even bigger than I wanted to then. Yikes.
Because we never had that representation of like, but like, yes, for fat bodies, and I think that's a whole other discussion, but for anybody as well, like any shape or size, you would be criticized, and there's always trying to get the perfect body. And obviously this is a very well-known narrative, so there is no such thing as that. But I think it was like impacted fat bodies and fat people so much more because we weren't even deemed as being acceptable, still not. I think with online publications and just publications in general, it's very exploitative. Which I would say, if it's an online publication, is the form of online abuse. And I think you know why I'm trying to conceal my anger. I don't get angry very often, but I have experience of that lately, and I don't even know how to word it. Like people are like, so basically the Daily Mail put me in their publication without any of my consultation. They've taken these pictures of me that I haven't consented to them using. Like the whole article piece is just plagiarism of a piece I was in, basically. It's horrendous. And like, and people are like, well, yeah, some people are like, well, just move on, you know? And I'm like, you don't even know like that feeling of like powerless, how powerless I felt and still do. And like it also then brings up, and not everyone has this, but it brought up all of my trauma of like non-consensual experiences and violation, and like all of that came up last week. So it's like, and with publications like who are far right and who do these kind of things and like, you know, exploit people's appearances and what they've done and like all of this stuff, they know their readership. That's the other thing. And they know their readership will then go and find that person, whether they're famous or not, and say things, which has happened here. And it's like, and imagine that on a larger scale. Like, imagine how every single person was thinking about Adele's weight loss.
I know.
Like, or anytime Gemma Collins does anything and her body is visible, like, Lizzo is I love Lizzo so much, and I always talk about Lizzo in any possible way I can. But Lizzo, she's incredible.
I love her.
And but she is so like, they comment on every single thing about her body, like
it's their job.
like it's their job, and like because they make money off it. That's why they don't stop, because people still buy it and read it. And yeah, so representation it has been a big problem, but so has exploitation. We want this representation, but it comes with all this, like, okay, it's like great that another publication has done an article about me, but there's all these aspects to it, like, that makes it definitely not great. But if we want representation and inclusion, like, we're then just faced, so many of us are just faced with exploitation and hatred and malice, and it then makes it, there's so much that needs to change, like with our media and social media and all of that, and just in society as well. But
yes, has your experience, well, I'm saying your experience, like you chose to be a part of it, you didn't, but has this situation with the Daily Mail, has that affected, or did it at a point like affect your thoughts on continuing to do articles and publications?
Absolutely. I like thought, do I stop this now? Like, do I just stop my social media? Like, do I just like make my accounts private and that's it? Just have these people in these accounts for now, who eventually will probably unfollow. Like, do I just like?
And
did
you get
I was
like a lot of online abuse from the Daily Mail? Like, I mean, I don't know.
I can't know exactly where it's come from, because the Daily Mail was so quick with it and posted it on the afternoon that the BBC article had come out. So the BBC article I had consented to, it had been done weeks before. The whole process, the journalist was lovely. He supported me before the process, during the process, after the process, checked in, like made sure I was comfortable with everything. Didn't include my social media at all, like all of this wonderful stuff, consulted me. And then when that was shared, I got so much trolling, like under my own tweet about it and under the BBC's tweet about it and on the article pages and all of that. But on the Daily Mail's tweet, there was already trolling underneath it as well. So I can't know abuse I've been sent, exactly where it's been sent from, unless I can see that person replying to whatever. So yeah, it's like I've seen the trolling on the Daily Mail, so I have received trolling and abuse from the article being shared, so I can definitely say that. And it scared me. I was like, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be in the Daily Mail. Like,
so I don't want to be in the Daily Mail.
It really freaked me out. Like, I was like, oh my, it freaked my boyfriend out. He was like, you're in the Daily Mail. But I think with the situation, it could have been anyone in that situation talking about something like that. It's not because I'm a person of fame or whatever. It's not because of me. It's because of what the conversation was.
But the article is so disgusting. It like puts you it's like a blueprint of how, like, this is somebody that if you want to give hate to, this is how to. Like, it's
basically,
it was so infuriating to read, especially straight after your BBC article, which was such a like great piece about you and all you do, to then it was like the Daily Mail just was the bully of the BBC, of just being like, meh, like weaknesses, like this is what you like. Oh, it was disgusting.
And the title, it was like body positivity activist. That's not what I am anyway. I'm not a body positivity activist. No,
you're just
19. Yeah, it's like, and if you're gonna say I'm at a difficult relationship with the word activist at the moment. I'd say I am in some sense. I can't really go and do anything active in the community right now besides being online and talking like that. So I can't go and like to meetings and protest like we all want to do, and like what like in that sense of social change. But that's a whole other thing. But basically, and then the title was like, and that mentioned my suicide attempt. And it made, the way they'd worded it, it was clickbait for one. And it made me be like, this is not a fabricated story. I sat in this room and tried to end my life. Like, that's what happened. And then I had all of these people being like, did she actually try and do that? And it's like, yeah. And anyone around me who cares to me, knows me, loves me, vice versa, knows that happened. I don't need to justify whatever you're going through. You never ever have to justify something like that, ever. You know it's happened.
Yeah.
Like, obviously unless you're trying to get help or like access or like obviously
yeah.
in that sense, but like it was the way these people were like wanting me to like, do you want me to describe it in detail? Like, I don't remember most of it because I was
Like
then
prove it,
unconscious.
sense of
Like prove it happened. It's like, do you want to see my medical record? Like, what do you want me to do? I can't do any of that, and I don't need to.
No.
So that was the way they had like written that. I mean, it's not untrue what had happened. They haven't lied, but the way that they've worded it, the way they've gone about it, like the way they've mentioned my location, they added me and like I had directly links to my social media. They've taken it out now but left that at it, and like I'm trying to get them to take it down but they won't. So it's yeah, it was just infuriating. And then I also think about the people who know me or follow me or who see this is the first glimpse they ever see of me, now think that if you ever speak up about these experiences or ever speak up about online abuse, that this is what's going to happen, or like this will be the reaction, so negative, like from trolls, from online abusers, from publications. So it's very disheartening to people or think, oh, her body looks a bit like mine, is that's what's going to happen to me if I try and love my body. Like it's just then we're then just in this toxic cycle.
I mean, it's just me personally, but I would just love to know why people think they can send online abuse to anybody, but specifically send online abuse to somebody where you have literally like just read like who it is and like what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? It's like surely if you are like a troll and you're just like a fat phobic piece of crap, like you would I personally can't wrap my head around, first of all, why anybody would send anybody any online hate, let alone after reading an article where you can see how it's like affected you before. And this piece, although written horribly, the original was like about shedding light on this. And
so it's tricky where like I try and put myself, because I've experienced online abuse so much in so many different forms, just like it's like I don't like to say like severities, because trolling is still awful and trolling often leads to then violent, like horrific abuse more often than not. But like trolling for me I can kind of handle now, because it's like I've had it so much. I was bullied severely at school. It's like I've heard everything you want to say about my body and about me before. Go on, do your worst. Like with those severities I often try and put, I don't like saying severities because I think it's all valid, of course it is. So with those different types of abuse online, some people argue that trolling isn't abuse, but I think it's a gateway to it, and most often than not they're doing it because they want a reaction and like all of that. And so I think a lot of it, when I've tried to put my feet in their shoes basically, and I think for one, it's so much ignorance and just not understanding things and never been taught things, and they perhaps haven't been given that opportunity to learn about like like I had to go out of my way to learn about fat phobia. I didn't learn it in school. I didn't learn it from my family. I read things online, in person, you know, I watched things, I like wrote things down, like I've studied it for like years now. That's how I learned about it, so I'm now trying to do that and try and get other people to learn about it. But so I think a lot of it is ignorance, and I think a lot of it is insecurity themselves, because if you're seeing someone, whether it's someone who's fat, someone who is of a marginalized sexuality, gender, whatever, race, like so many aspects, I think so much of if you see people like that trying to love themselves or publicly showing they love themselves and being happy with who they are, people are like, what? But I'm not happy with who I am, so how come what? And it's like they can't understand that, I think, in their head. And this is just me speaking of my own personal view, that I don't know if there's any science behind that, whatever, psychology, but I think it's very hard to see people who as society we're supposed to like, they're not accepted, then express love in a way and encourage other people to do that. They're like, it's like baffling to them. They like, don't get it. There's a lot of it comes from their own self-hatred, I think, and insecurity themselves, which doesn't make it okay, because I've been so insecure to the point of like harm, and I've never ever bullied anyone, I've never like sent abuse to anyone. I've never said anything so harmful. Like, we've all said things we don't mean, we've all made mistakes, but never to the point of like trolling or like
No. Yeah,
maybe
of
as a
course.
teenager in school I've probably been like, not about a pit, I don't know, I was so shy and quiet, so I don't even know, but like,
Yeah, I'm sure as it like I would have like I can think of times where I have said horrible things about people's appearance as a teenager, and not that it was okay. And actually recently I spoke to those people about it because I was like trying to bully people so bullies would stop bullying me. Which I don't know why I thought that was a clever thing to do, but I think it's something that a lot of people attempt during school.
to try and refract it away from you as well and be like, and
Yeah.
I think to give you a sense of power, because
Yeah.
the power's been taken, so it's like,
Yeah.
I know people like I know people who've done similar, and I honestly don't blame you, as well as like how we're brought up in like a school environment is so awful,
So
and like
awful. So
so
awful. But
a
I
lot of yeah
like I've never said anything mean. Like I wouldn't dare ever say anything about somebody's appearance, like not even like just not to them. I just wouldn't. I would Why would I? It's not, I don't
why do you
understand.
care?
Yeah, it's literally none of my business.
No, at
But
all.
it's especially like with going back to fat phobia, and I would say it is fat phobia, but it's like I still experience to this day, like somebody will like tweet or put up a post speaking about like what they've eaten and like be like, oh, I'm such a fatty or something like that. And I'm like, why are you correlating? Yeah, like
Fat
it is
phobia.
fat phobia. And it's like whenever I kind of want to speak up about this, it's always, I don't know, like I always get told that like it isn't. And I'm like, well, I don't, first of all, like I don't think it's up to you to decide if it is or it isn't. But also like first of all, why do you feel like you have the right to comment on what people are eating? So like why uh and like second of all, like why do you assume that like that those two things correlate?
Yeah, like what it and fat being then painted in this negative light, and it's like a
Yeah.
description of a feeling. It's like fat is not a fucking feeling. Like
No.
I'm so fed up of hearing that.
Yeah. Oh, I feel fat.
I feel so from people who aren't fat, and I understand body dysmorphia and eating disorders and disordered
Yeah.
eating all comes into it, but those people from those communities also understand that that is like some of those aspects are fat phobic, and they get that, and they're like,
Yeah.
and it's like, and it's also an illness that I can't control completely, so it makes sense. But to people who like, a lot of it is just conditioned fat phobia from our society, so I've partaken in it. I've also been a victim of it, like maybe not a victim, but like, you know, had that experience, so I get it. Like, I actually get it. I get why you're saying that. It's just learning why that's not okay to say, because and people who are fat and have that internalized fat phobia, I don't like, I'll encourage them not to say stuff like that, but also they're going through their own journey with their own fatness and body, and it's not for us to come and be like, encourage and empower them, but it's like, I've been there too. Like I've been that person who's like thinking fat is the worst thing ever whilst being fat. So it's like I do feel for those people. So I do understand it, and I don't blame the individual. We all have a responsibility, but I don't fully blame the individual.
No.
For phrasing like that, and like for diet culture and all of that. Like, we have a sense of responsibility to not partake in those things, but if we're never taught that they're bad, what are you gonna do?
What do you expect?
And then there's a small group of people being like, this is bad, and like, you're like, well, no one else is saying that. The people in power aren't saying that. Capitalism, baby. But, you know, it's hard to like, for people to like process that. So, and that's in so many forms of like social issues, like, because if the majority are like, what you're talking about, and there's a minority who are like, this is bad, or like, we need to change this, then who are you going to listen to? Like, and I don't know why those of us in the minority are like, I don't know. I think it's just through learning and education and like community. I think that's how that process starts. and a lot of people don't have access to those things. So it's like, it's hard, so much to come. It's nuance. There's so much nuance.
Has your online abuse been like solely or predominantly like due to how you look?
Most of the time it's fat phobia or misogyny. There's been a bit of queer phobia lately.
Oh,
kind of fun to throw in the mix. Shake it up a bit. No, it's not good.
And has your, obviously I know you spoke about like how with trolling it's like you're not like, it sucks to say, but it's like you're used to it now, you can deal with it now, which is like, it's great that you can, and I'm so like pleased that you're strong enough that it isn't affecting you as much as it may have before, but the fact that you have to deal with it is a problem. Yes, but
yeah.
But has your, like, do you see yourself becoming like with, and like specifically with you, but also just like in general, of course it should be the fact that these people giving you online abuse stop, and that's how it gets solved. But how have you, like, what, for people that are maybe watching and they are going through something similar, what have you put in place to make sure that you're able to like deal with it like healthier? Or, well, healthier I don't think is necessarily the best term to use, because being sent online abuse isn't healthy, like that isn't something that you should be experiencing, but it's like
a sense of like safety, or like, I don't know, like stability, and like to like keep the ball moving, like keep going in that sense. I mean, this is just personally, and I know not everyone can relate to this, but like, because I've been through bullying before, and because I've been through trauma, I've been through one of the worst things a human being can go through, sexual assault. And this has been very empowering for me, learning this to therapy last year. And again, I will speak generally for what people can do, but this is just me personally, is when I learned what had happened to me, I realized that nothing worse, like truly, I can never be violated in that way, in any worse way than that. Like, so, and I think that can be applicable to situations. So many of us have been through hardships and like difficulties and traumas, and it's that you've got through that. Like, it's, I know it's such a cliche, you've got through that, you can get through anything, but it's true. Like, you have been through some of the worst things, I mean, and I just think, knowing that I've survived that, I'm like, I don't care what Martin online says about me, because it's like, and the majority of it's from men, which is another thing we should talk about. But because of that, it's like, it's like your words just don't mean anything to me, because for one, I have not asked, and for two, I literally just don't care. It annoys me that they say it, and obviously it's a problem, and I'm trying to help fight that problem, but I also know that people are just going to be pricks sometimes. And like, I literally have had someone troll me before, and then I've been like, why would you say that? And then they've DM me and be like, do you know what? I'm really sorry that I said that. And they deleted the tweet, and it was this guy, like this like white man, and obviously in his like early 20s, and he was like someone I'd probably never have some sort of friendship with. And he was like, I'm truly sorry. He was like, I just didn't understand, and I thought it was funny, but now speaking to you, he was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, oh, I really appreciate you saying that. And then he like was like, I will never do this again. And I actually believe that. Like, I actually believe that that man will never go and do something like that to someone again, because I think he then realized it was a person. I'm not just this meme or funny thing.
It's not like just words on a screen.
Like, I'm a person. So like, that does not happen often, and he should not have said that in the first place.
No.
But it's like that some people just, so I think sometimes if people are going through similar experience, just remember that those people and it doesn't mean it's okay or like justifiable. They just might not know that what they're saying is so bad, or that they're saying it to a person. Then on the flip side of that, we would never say that. So,
and we would
but
know
then is that
said to a person?
Yeah, but is that because of different aspects of our growing up and our experiences that other people have not had, or chances they've not had that we've had, or experiences we've had that they've not had? So it's very nuanced again. So I think another thing would be physically block. I have nearly 10,000 accounts blocked online. We're gonna hit that 10 number soon, I'm sure. And I use like blockchains and extensions, and I know a lot of people do. I have a friend online, they have blocked over 80,000 people because they want their space to be safe and they don't want to argue with people about human rights. Like, they're not up for debate. And they're very stern on that. And I'm like, nope, sorry, you're not coming into my space. I really respect them for that. So it's like, and obviously you should not have to be taking protection for yourself in these spaces should be safe, but they're not right now. And so short term things like blocking, reporting, do it. I'm not going to say that anything's going to come of it. That's the only thing, unless someone's been really explicit and violent and threatened you, and there's an option to write about it, which is very rare on these algorithms like Instagram and Twitter. It depends on what you're reporting. They might let you write a little something.
Oh gosh.
But majority of the time they don't. So it makes it hard to then make your report like valuable. So reporting, yes, do it, block and report, but I just don't think there's so much wrong with these algorithms and how the reporting system works that it's like you might not get what you expect from it. So I recommend it, but just prepare yourself that probably nothing is going to happen, which is shit. And one thing for people who haven't gone through online abuse, and if you know people who have, I'm going to say this: do not tell people to log off, because that is the person's choice. If they choose to log out, if they choose to take a break, that's their choice, okay? Their decision. If they choose to do that for well-being, I've done that for my own well-being before. I did it over Christmas and received some of the most worst abuse I've ever received from Christmas to New Year. I wasn't on socials. I was like, I can actually enjoy my Christmas and not let these idiots ruin my life. Whilst recovering in the early weeks of recovery as well. That was just my circumstance. But saying to people to log off is like blaming them. It's like, and I get why people say it, because obviously, if you log out, it's gone, but it's not. Those words stay with you. Like, I'm speaking from my experience, but I know others will be able to relate. Those words don't leave you, not easily anyway. And I think it's a short-term solution. Great. It's temporary. We need this long system change of cultural and social changes, as well as systemic changes, institutionalized changes, and all of those sense, because we need the big institutions and platforms and social media to actually care about this, and that's not going to happen for quite a while probably. So it's like short term, maybe some people should log off, but when they log back on, the abuse is still going to be there. So it's just not helpful.
No,
maybe I'm just angry because I hate online abuse so much, but whatever that's been told to me, it's never been helpful.
No, and I can't imagine it to be helpful.
No.
It's not your job to be logging off. That's not for you to be doing. And I mean, and not that it's, I don't want to put this amount of pressure on you, but obviously, like you were saying, like hopefully in a few years' time there will be something on social, well, not a few years, but like realistically, that stops this. But like, in what like needs to be done to support those going through online abuse and to stop it? And is there anything for people like watching where you're like, you should like do this or look at this? Is there anywhere that you think you could like signpost people to support those going through this?
Sadly, there's not a lot. I wish I could have all of these different things I could say. The one thing I would recommend going to the organisation Glitch. They're a wonderful charity. Well, I'm not sure if they're a charity or an organisation. But they're an organisation, definitely. They work more to do with online workspaces, especially during the pandemic, but they're also here to like stop online abuse for mainly women and non-binary people and those of marginalised genders more than those of not, but for anyone. And they do like workshops on like self-care online. Like they're very like focused on the people who experience the abuse, not the perpetrators. So I recommend checking out the work they do. They often have different things people can get involved with. In terms of like support, there's not a lot. There isn't like a place I can come and signpost people to. Oh, hey, check them out. If you've gone through abuse such as like unsolicited sexual imagery, image-based sexual abuse, like formerly known as revenge porn, I would recommend plug the organisation I co-founded, because that's a form of sexual violence as well. So we can help support with that. We're about sexual violence. We're called the Speak Up Space. Check us out online. But for like online abuse and like kind of like oppressive abuse in that sense online, there's not a lot out there. I would say if the threats are to the point where someone is encouraging you to end your life or threatening to kill you or harm you in any way, or if you're fearing your life because of what's been said to you, then go to the police. Again, I'm not saying that your response will be great, because they just told me to log off.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then they looked into what had been, I had to like pursue it twice to be like, can you do something? And the police officer was very blunt with me basically, and she said they would not hold up in court. And I was like, okay, even with all the evidence, cool, okay. So the whole system needs to change. I know I'm laughing, it's because I'm very cynical. But you can come to me, like I really want to set up like some sort of support group in this sense. Not sure how I'm going to do that, maybe in the next few months. I am working on a campaign, but my mental health just hasn't been in the place to like even think about that lately, especially with everything that happened with the Daily Mail last week. So it's been a bit of a struggle with that. But people are starting to talk about this a little bit more. There are white paper stage of the law trying to reform one of the laws and legislations around online abuse and malicious communication, which includes online abuse. That act is from 1988, if I'm correct. So needs reformity, definitely. So yes, there are different campaigns. So many of them come from celebrities and influencers, and it's great that they're doing it, but they obviously have access to like lawyers and have financial access and things that the average person does not have.
Yeah,
so
they probably have therapy too, which is needed.
A privilege, sadly. You know, I talk about a lot of my online abuse at therapy. And how, because a lot of the online abuse sort of brings up old trauma and all of that, and responses to that. So if the online abuse has ever made you like harm yourself or want to harm yourself, that is a crime. No one can make you feel that way. I guess some people would say that it's like what's the word, I can't remember the word, like I can't remember how that would be interpreted because of feelings, but it's still valid. So I wish I just want there to be a place I can be like, go to this, but it's I really do recommend Glitch. They are wonderful. And the
Speak Up Space.
Yes, sadly we can't like help if you've been through like online abuse, but in the sense of like threats or like harassment, but we can for like I said, unsolicited sexual imagery. So for people who don't know what that means, like if someone sends you a sexual image that you haven't consented to, that is a crime.
I think is
Wait, is that a crime?
People have done and gone through.
I don't know if that's a crime. Like I couldn't tell you if that's a crime or not. Oh God, that's so awful that we have to even like think about that, isn't it?
Yeah, And I think that your voice and your platform is a place that truly does, and I mean, I can only speak for myself here, but I'm sure it's for another, it makes you feel so safe and calm in the fact that this isn't something that anybody should have to face alone, despite it feeling like that's what you almost deserve to be doing because of it. And I mean, I personally can't thank you enough for it. I think that your account is one of the most brilliant things I've ever virtually stumbled across.
Thank you. That means so much to me.
No,
Thank
you're
you.
doing such amazing work, and I think that the Daily Mail, first of all, like needs to sort all of that out. And I mean, when we put this out on Cultural Exchanges, I'll definitely put in all relevant links of how people can support this article being taken down. It should be down by then, but if it isn't, we will definitely
Yeah,
support you with that.
I have decided not to do a petition because
okay,
is that just to generate more abuse for me, and I can't handle. I'm 2 months into my recovery and valuing that recovery so much, so it's like
well, if there is anything that you would like us to do, just let me know, and we can definitely
might try and do some sort of email template for people to
absolutely, and we'll also, like, when this goes out, all of the links to find Pheebs you'll be able to see somewhere, and there'll also be in the link in the bio. I'm not too sure how it's working just yet, but I think it's just going back to you for a second. The fact that you have gone through a lot, and you're like, you're in recovery now, you're going through therapy, and like, as much as I don't want to be like, and you're only 19, like you still have so much life left, thank goodness. And like, I'm just really excited to see where you go next. And also you were making such amazing work, despite it seeming and probably feeling like a lot of the time that nobody wants you to be doing that. And
it does feel like that often. It makes me want to just stop,
but then
I get comments like this and people in my DMs or commenting, like, being like, just thank you. And if like what I've done or posted about or written about or whatever has impacted one person positively, that's enough for me. Like, that's why I carry on. One person, like, just one person. Like,
but it's just because, as simple as, like, you've been like on my social radar for a while, but I remember, like, one of your TikToks of you playing bass came up on my TikTok, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, just seeing somebody that looks like me playing a musical instrument isn't something I see. Like, just as simple as that. And I was like, fuck yeah. And like, it's like, I'm sure you didn't make that to like necessarily empower like other fat women or non-binary people to
everything I do is to empower
people. But do you know what I mean? It's like your like, authenticity is empowerment to so many people, and I think that you should give yourself credit for that more. It doesn't always have to be the tweets and the education and you supporting people through the speak up space and whatever else, whether it is DMs, because I'm sure you get several DMs where you are supporting people. I don't doubt that for 1 second, but it's like, you just showing up and being you is like more than enough for so many of us. And I think, although you have these visions to do these amazing things, and I will fully support you with that, and I'm really excited, just know that, like, you just existing and continuing to be online despite everything you have done is like a fucking amazing thing to be doing in itself. So don't discredit that. Okay?
I'm very hard. Tried so hard not to cry.
Yeah, I think you're so beautiful, and your body positivity journey has really, really, really supported me with mine. So thank you. Is there anything you feel like we haven't touched on that you'd want to before we?
No, I just thank you for this opportunity, be able to talk about, like, having gone through my first experience of not being able to like consent to something being shared about me in a publication sense. I'm very grateful for opportunities now and like discussions or writing, video, podcasts where it's a safe space for both the interviewer and the interviewee or whatever the situation. So I'm very, very grateful that, you know, you have sat with me during this time, during some tough conversation. And yeah, I think I just want to say to people that like, I get told this a lot. For every one voice that is who's like telling you that whether it's extreme stuff like you don't deserve to be here or you shouldn't exist or you should just censor yourself or send hatred to you, there will be so many voices who will be impacted by your presence in whatever form it is you do, like whether you go to work and your work colleagues in that sense, you post a singing video, like you just post a picture of yourself being someone that society doesn't want you to be, and like whatever sense it is, there will be people who need that, and maybe you're not doing it for them, that's also okay, but there's people who, like you said, will be impacted by a person's presence or what they do or what they say. So never think that those people who, we've all had people in our lives who have tried to silence us and push us down. I'm sure we have, and severe and just normal. I'm doing that because it shouldn't be normal to do that in normal aspects. So it's just like, you know, it's okay to like just be yourself and unapologetically be that person. Doesn't mean don't apologize. Sometimes you need to say sorry, but just exist and know that your existence benefits others more than the horrible people say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been like an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I mean, please do go and check out Pheebs and everything that they do.
Come say hello.
Yeah,
I love you people. It's lovely.
And I hope that people who are listening to this and can relate can also find support in just hearing you speak, because I think it definitely will.